This has been a very enjoyable class. This class was designed by a professor who's passed away, a very good friend of mine named Dwight Hare, and he was a professor in ed leadership, and he wanted to create a research class that was designed and was focused more towards uh, education majors. There's another class called Function and Methods of Research, which really it hits all the details of it, and you look at all the different types of research, causal, comparative, experimental. And we kind of touched on that, but we also, under this course, 88553, it's more of research and education. So I was brainstorming and I thought, what would be a really good final lecture for graduate students who are in the field of education? And I found a really good article that I felt was about ABD. And ABD, all of y'all are not working on your doctorate. You're working on either specialist or your master's program. But ABD is what many people are, it's called all but the dissertation. And I wanted to just look at this research, and it's going to show you when you move towards higher levels, or whenever you're just moving in any type of research, you'll actually encounter this idea of ABD. So I just wanted to look at this research and see what we're talking about. Whenever someone goes for their PhD, and if you ever decide to go for your PhD, it's a major hurdle in education. The PhD is a very intense program, but in case you've ever looked at it, it is just like a master's degree. The first part is. The first part is generally 33 hours of courses past the master's program. So if you're working on a specialist, you can probably transfer about 9 hours of those into the program. So you'll have probably about 24 more hours to go. So you'll have to take advanced statistics. So some universities require you to take Stats 3, but for the most part, you'll be doing statistics as well as research, another research class as well. You'll be taking usually Research 2, and you'll take a lot of other courses as well. But it's kind of like a master's above a master's. Once you complete your coursework in the dissertation process, if you ever want to do this, once you complete the coursework, you'll then shift into a phase which is the final phase of the PhD program, and that is your dissertation. This article looks at the phenomenon which has been known as the ABD, that I've completed all my work but the dissertation. So they wanted to look at the ABD and just see why are people hitting that level and quitting. Research shows that approximately 50% of people who get to ABD, all their coursework, do not complete the dissertation. So this is a very interesting research article because it's going to look at the psychological aspect of the ABD and just see some of the factors. It says that the dissertation requirement for a PhD candidate has many facets, but is a major milestone or a rite of passage. And of course, it also says that this is a huge obstacle. It is also the battleground of numerous emotional and developmental conflicts, and that there's little literature on the psychology of the dissertation process. So when you get to that dissertation, it's a very emotional process, and that's what this research article looks at. This section right here talks about there's underlying emotional conflicts that so typically infiltrate the dissertation process. It is very emotional whenever you're going through the dissertation process. I'm just going to interject some first-person accounts to this. The issues that some people have is whenever you're taking courses and you're a master's student and you take courses, and then you become a PhD student and you're taking the same courses as well. Many times you'll be taking some courses with master's students. So you kind of feel like just a regular graduate student like everyone else is. And as you're taking these courses, you get into the flow of things and you really get good at it. You know what you need to do to make an A, and you know how to survive the course. But as you complete the courses and you go into the dissertation process, it has to be more independent. Let me go, the process that many of us have to go through is you'll usually take a class called Research 2. And in Research 2, which is one of your last classes that you take during your coursework, you'll be asked to start formulating research projects. And a very smart student will start looking at their dissertation. And they'll start saying, okay, I'm going to take Research 2, and at the end of Research 2, I need to have a sample proposal. And if you know what your topic is on your dissertation, then you can kind of gear that class towards that. A lot of people that I've met that did not complete their dissertation, they became ABD, usually wasted Research 2, and they did a topic that wasn't important or a topic that did not work for their dissertation. So they left Research 2 kind of starting over, and that really hurt them, and they became discouraged because of that. And when you complete Research 2, you'll have your dissertation, your proposal kind of outlined. At that part, you'll go ahead and you'll select your chair of your dissertation committee, and then you'll formulate the rest of your committee. My recommendation for a chair would be you need someone who's got a very good personality, kind of well respected in the community. You also want to look at other aspects, such as, do they answer emails fast? Or will you be a priority? How many other dissertation committees are they on? On the main campus in Starkville and other universities, it's not uncommon to have major professors on 10 to 15 dissertation committees. And this is very time consuming. And, as a student, as a dissertation student, you really want to be able to have someone who can answer emails fast. Also, a chair of the committee is going to be someone who is going to have to control the other committee members. So you don't really want a junior faculty member who doesn't have much power or sway or is not respected trying to convince another committee member who is a full professor and definitely can sway the vote. So you want to have a good personality because of this section right here that says it's a very emotional conflicts. People become very upset with that. So this article looked at dissertations, emotional conflicts, as well as different case studies to formulate what they saw with dissertations. It does say right here that there is limited data and there's limited depth of studies, and that many people, it says right here, the related topic of ABD status is relied on self-report questionnaires. There's not many people who go for their dissertation, for their PhD. It's a very small percentage of people who actually do that. And the ABDs are hard to find, so there's not much research on ABDs. But this checklist right here is, it kind of gets us into the mind of someone who does not complete their PhD in a timely manner. And what this researcher, Mosinski of 1988, found was that he said there was timely completers and kind of delayed completers. And people who did not complete their dissertation fast or were delayed cited the following topics. They evaluated their advisor less favorably. So people who had conflict with their chair or their advisor, those are the people who did not complete their dissertation fast. They also lived further away from campus. And that's, if you think about that, that's definitely something that's very interesting. I've had people tell me that they're going to work on their dissertation online, distance, and I don't, living close to a campus actually does help you. I lived 15 minutes from campus on my PhD at Ole Miss, and it definitely did help because you could just pop in and see your faculty members who are on your committee and just talk to them, and it kind of smoothed things over. But if you're 2 or 3 hours away, that could affect that. The completers did not live close to campus. They also rate the priority of the PhD lower. That the people, now these are the people who took a while to complete their dissertation. So you could see that their priorities maybe were different. Maybe they had children, maybe they had soccer going on or some sport, and they had the PhD, completing the PhD was not a major priority. They are less interested in the dissertation research topic. That's critical. If you're doing a research topic and you lose interest in it, you kind of go, I don't want to do research on this. They rate stressful events as causing more interference with their work. Stress is a big factor. We see this with undergrad students. I had an undergraduate student who was going to student teach and build a house and plan a wedding all in one semester. And it just didn't work out. When you're working on your dissertation, you really want to limit your stress. They score higher on a procrastination inventory. This means they like to put stuff off, or they don't like to, they just do. Additionally, graduate students in experimental psychology completed their dissertations more rapidly than in clinical psychology, which means if you're doing lab-based research where you have a large amount of data coming in very fast, you're more likely to complete the research. Look at this section just right here, and this kind of blew my mind. I know I'm a little bit of a nerd, but it said that Jones in 1987 studied degree completion in counseling psychology, and he focused largely on students' circumstances, reporting significant money problems. And so money problems was a big issue that caused people to not complete. Well, that's pretty obvious. But look at this. Being a grad student during a period of major changes in the faculty were also associated with late completers. Faculty turnover is a critical element of all jobs. I don't tell people many of this, but there are a lot of universities that are training grounds for better professors. I will not name any universities, and let me be very clear with this. Mississippi State University is not one of these training grounds. Mississippi State University is a Research One university. It is a university that people want to work at. But there's other universities in the state or outside the state that are known as training grounds for assistant professors. Now, there's different ranks in professors. There's assistants, and then after 6 years you become an associate, and then after another 5 years you can become a full professor, which is just professor. And when you become an assistant to an associate, you gain the rank of tenure, which means you have a permanent job security. So when you see a university, and you can go Google a university if you want to, anyone in Mississippi or anywhere, and look at the faculty in the department, if you see the title assistant professor throughout the department, that means they have a very young staff, a staff that's non-tenured and that are trying to move their way up. And if you see like one full professor or one associate professor, that's usually a red flag for some turnover. What you want to see in a department would be you want to see 3 or 4 assistant professors and maybe 2 associate professors, or even 3 associate professors, and then 1 or 2 professors, which are full professor. So I know we have different titles that makes people weird, but assistant, and then it goes to associate, and then it just goes professor after 12 years. So that's what you really want to see, is you want to see a nice blend on the group. But when a lot of universities have a high turnover rate, it's associated with pay. Some universities do not pay associates a lot of money. So what many people do is they'll go to a smaller university or one of these training ground universities, and they'll train there for 2 or 3 years as an assistant professor, and they'll get their feet wet and they learn the game, and then they go to a better university, and then they'll go get tenure there and they'll become an associate. So that's what when I read this section right here, that definitely kind of opened my eyes up. When you have a university with high turnover rate, and there's professors changing constantly, and they're leaving, they're going to other places, this will have a negative effect on student retention. And a lot of your grad students may drop out and say, I don't like this because I have a high turnover. So stability is very important. Once again, Mississippi State University, just to be clear, is not one of these turnover places. Mississippi State University they classify it as a Research One university, and our jobs are pretty hard to get. But that's why when I saw this section, I was like, wow, that's amazing. High turnover rate of faculty members will cause students to not complete the degree. There are some positive predictors of completion. And look at this, efficient completion of coursework. When a student goes into grad school and they just knock out those courses, they do a great job, they have a good GPA. Their dissertation research, they begin doing their dissertation research early in the process. And that connects to my previous point about research too, doing dissertation research early in your program and starting to guide towards that. There is no difference in completion rates were found in relation to ethnic background or sex of the subjects. So gender and race did not factor into completion. This next section I kind of found a little bit questionable. That's what I marked it as questionable. They kind of go out on a limb here and they use one major research, Stern, 1985. And they kind of say that if someone lost a parent, if their parent was divorced or left the family, then they had other issues psychological, and they're having trouble with connections. You can read this section. I'll add this article if you want to, but I just kind of felt that was kind of a stretch, but that's up to you. On the bottom, it talks about a book, David Sternberg's How to Complete and Survive a Doctoral Dissertation, 1981. And it talks more about the process of it, but there's a lot of books out there. The books out there, though, if you read them on how to complete dissertations and how to write and publish, they're very analytical. They're very do this, do that, do this, boom, 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 boom. And they don't really take into consideration the psychological elements that this article talks about. Typical conflicts. And consider the emotional struggles that may be brought to fore by working on doctoral dissertations. It's useful to recall certain characteristics of the dissertation. So let's look at what are some conflicts that occur within here. You have to work closely with an advisor. And that's hard for some people because some people are kind of intimidated by professors, which I know many of y'all are not, but sometimes when you get into the office of a professor and people get kind of intimidated by that. But the PhD program is supposed to be one where you're becoming a professor. So you're going to have to learn how to fight those battles and to argue some of your points and also take some of those criticisms and be okay with that. Another section right here, it talks about that you're having to add new literature to this. So this is kind of a daunting task because you're trying to take the research and take the advice of your advisor who tells you, I'm going to be more specific, let's say your advisor is saying that dispositions is a major research element. And then you start looking at dispositions and you find a new research area that hasn't been explored. Well, you're going outside the comfort zone of your advisor. So there's going to be conflict there. You're going to have to sell to your advisor or your committee chair why this research is important, because this committee chair doesn't know anything about this new topic that you've picked because you're supposed to be doing new research. So conflict is inevitable. Also, many times students, and we've already talked about this, you have functioned in a structured environment. And because you function in a structured environment, like a classroom setting, and you move away from that and you start becoming more mature in your research, there's going to be some conflict there. The article also talks about, it kind of, in this section right in here, it talks about growing up. And it kind of goes into a psychological element of it that I'm okay with, but it says that a PhD would mean that someone is growing up career-wise and they're becoming more stable and they're becoming more in their research. And many people are kind of challenged by that task of going to that next level. I ask a lot of graduate students like that. I'll say, well, you want to go for your PhD? And they'll go, no, I don't do that. And this article right here talks about how, and it kind of opened my eyes to it, that the PhD, it's not saying that you're not growing up, but it says that the PhD is kind of like being a fully committed adult in research. So many people kind of get challenged by that. They're like, I don't want to do that yet. I'd rather just take classes. I don't want to be the person who has to do the research. So that was very interesting. This next section, it talks about more of, it goes to the Oedipus complex, which is Freud. And you can read this if you want to. But remember, Oedipus killed his father to marry his mother. And what it's saying is that many times people who who want to go for their PhD might have psychological elements of their family and trying to move forward, but also compares the Oedipus complex with you're trying to become your advisor, which is a challenge as well. So it's a kind of a stretch, and I like how they wrote about it, but that's very interesting. And this is going to open the door for some more research if anyone ever wants to do this. That a PhD student is, so just put it in context. As a PhD student, you're sitting there in the office of your advisor, and you yourself want to become the advisor, and you want their job. So it's kind of like the Oedipus complex, that you are trying to become your advisor, and your advisor knows this. So because of that, there is conflicts. I like the idea. Definitely needs some more research there. As you scroll down here, you'll see a brief vignette illustrates the roles, positives that professors can play in dissertations outcomes. This little paragraph right here highlights a bigger part of this, that you're going to have a 4-person committee on your PhD program, and even though you may not have conflict with any of these people on your PhD committee, there might be conflict between the faculty members on the committee and other faculty members. And that's what this is talking about, that there are faculty members on the committee that might not who have conflicts. And that's why it says right here, a committee chair, a very strong committee chair, can put that back in line. And that's why picking a good committee is very important. I had the same thing happen to me. I had a 4-person committee with a strong chair, and one of the committee members left and went to another university, and we replaced him with a brand new PhD. And that person really put me under the ringer and just slammed my papers and ripped them apart. So, which I was okay with, but they also made some comments that were open-ended, like add this, expand, and I don't like those comments. So I went to the chair and I said, what do we do about this person? I said, they're killing me. They're going in a direction that I don't like that we're going to on research. And he said, just don't worry about it. The person will calm down. What I found out later was that the chair kind of put more work on that new faculty member and kind of calmed him down a little bit. And it kind of got in line. So maybe the new faculty member was trying to make an impression with everybody by being tough. But that's why a strong committee chair is very important. The next thing right here is a case vignette that you can look at. That's going to be your homework assignment. I just want you to read the case vignette and just read it, and then write me a Word document summary on what you learned about it. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. So that's a homework assignment. I'll put it up, and it's just going to be inside the lecture. Very easy to do. So read the case vignette. I'll put the Word document. I'll put the PDF on. In the discussion afterwards, it says there are several significant points illustrated by the clinical vignette. First, conflicts pertaining to the research and writing of a dissertation are always part of and never isolated from the rest of the person's conflicts. And that's the key thing from this whole chapter. As you read this article, if you do have time to read this article, you see that it starts out with little bitty slices, but then it kind of snowballs and it says, look, everyone has so many issues going on and so many conflicts. And that is what's going on when people don't complete their PhD, is there's so many elements psychologically that we haven't even looked at. There's dissertation committees, there's faculty turnover, there's stress in one's life, there's conflicts among the committees, there's procrastination on your part. So to get that PhD, it's very emotional, and you have to, it's not impossible to do, but you have to overcome all of these emotions. And also so I would suggest the best way to complete a PhD is once you get to that ABD process is definitely have some therapy. You got to put yourself in check, and you've got to have a good meditation, yoga, so that you can fight those battles when committee members are wanting to, and more stress comes in, and someone doesn't like your research, or if you just kind of get bored with your research. You need to have good notes that's going to let you. You have to fight back all the stress and the factors that can hurt you from completing, so that you can complete the PhD program. It also talks about third and fourth. It says these conflicts can often be productively sorted out in the course of psychotherapy with suitable patients at work, and it continues on. Very interesting article. Why are we talking about this in a master's and a specialist course, but not a PhD course? I just want you to see where psychologically you need to really, if you're going to do research, you need to shed all the stress. And I know it's finals are coming up and stress is increasing, and that's something that you want to shake from yourself. Otherwise, you can get in kind of a funk, and it can really, and that's why summer's always good for everybody. They go, and I've heard this from many teachers, I just need to get this semester over with. It is very stressful. So I'm actually in a good part of my life where the stress is kind of going away a little bit, and that's very good. I've completed my tenure and promotion, so I got moved up to associate with tenure. But I understand stress, and when we're going to look at the final exam, I'm going to try to make it as stress-free as possible. I'm just going to add this now into this lecture. I hope you've enjoyed this class. This class has been fun. This class, I know you're taking it online through Starkville, and I'm in Meridian, but this class has been it's been a joy. And hopefully I ask your forgiveness for the way that this class started, because I got this class late assigned to me. However, I also did the lab, and it was kind of an echo. And then I took over Camtasia software, and I started doing this kind of software here. I bought myself a new microphone, and I tried to make it better. So I've kind of learned as I've gone. I've really enjoyed where this class is now. I really enjoyed the videos. I've enjoyed doing the YouTubes and the MP4s. It's been more time intensive, but I've really enjoyed this, and that's it. And I'll make a final. As you listen to this lecture, I know what you want to know is what's your homework assignment. Just read the clinical vignette. You know what? I'm in a real good mood. Just send me an email as soon as you hear this and say, I read the article, and I'm going to give you the points. It's no big deal. Just say I read the article. You don't have to write any homework. You don't have to do any homework. Just send me an email that says I've read the article, and I'm ready to say I've read the article, and that's it. So your homework is just to read, and I'm going to trust you that you read. No big deal. And I'll give you the points for that. The final exam, I'm going to post the final exam next Monday, and it's going to stay online for a week. You'll have 90 minutes to complete the final exam. So when you set the computer and you begin the final exam, make sure that you're ready to do the final exam. You can do it at the lab or anything like that. It's going to be 90 minutes. I'm going to just make questions up from all the lectures we've had. If you have a computer and you have Mozilla on one side, you can have all your Google Chrome tabs. You can use the internet, but whenever you sit down and you begin the exam, remember you'll have 90 minutes, so make sure you dedicate 90 minutes of your time to do that. It'll be 100 points, obviously, and it'll be real easy. But we're going to do that next Monday, and that'll run for a week. So I'll have that up. I'm actually going to make the test right now. I hope you've enjoyed this class. If you ever need anything, you can just shoot me an email. I'm down in Meridian, Mississippi, which is 90 miles south of Mississippi State. And that's it. This is Dr. Ratliff saying goodbye.